Hello, and welcome to the 10th season of Five Alarm Task Force. I'm your host, Steve Green. Happy to be here with you and happy to have you here with us. We are proud to say that this is our 10th season. We've been a little slow to the starting line, but part of that was my health I had been dealing with. But we have more people coming in. We have Chris Kessinger who's going to be coming in to talk about Citizens First, a great program that he's been running for several years now. And also we're going to have Chief Chad Costa from Petaluma, California. He's going to talk about the fires that they dealt with almost a year ago in January, the big fires in greater LA County and some of the other counties as well. So we have guests coming on, and as long as I'm healthy enough to do it, we're going to be here. And I am so glad to kick off this season with a gentleman. I don't think we ever really met personally at any of the programs, but he has become a dear friend, a great contributor to the podcast, and a great fire educator. And I think that if you haven't heard Mike Daley talk about anything in the fire service, then you'll know that this is someone you want to study from, participate with in any of his programs, because you'll gain more in one of his programs than you might gain in 10 days at a regional program. Now, regional programs are great, and we need them because not everybody can afford to go to the national conferences. So these regional conferences are important to get as many of our brothers and sisters into them to learn new theories, new prospects, new tools, new methodology. Because as we know, and Mike and I just talked about this before we started, that we live by the motto, we don't like change and we don't like status quo. So try arguing that with your spouse, and when they ask you to do the errands, and start sharing things along there. But Mike, Captain just recently retired, Mike Daley, 37-year fire service veteran, serving a department in Monroe Township, New Jersey. He serves as a staff instructor. He serves as a staff instructor in 2 county fire academies and is an adjunct professor at 2 county colleges, developing and delivering FESHE approved curriculum in fire behavior and building construction. And that's where our good friend AJ comes in as well. Mike is over 20-year member of New Jersey Task Force 1 USAR, serving as a rescue squad officer, and is a FEMA lead instructor in the Structural Collapse Specialist Program. He has a bachelor's degree in public safety and holds certifications as a fire officer, fire instructor, fire official, FEMA All Hazards Operations Section Chief, on-scene incident commander, fire investigation technician, certified fire and explosions investigator, and has completed the Knowledge One Fire Dynamics program from the International Association of Arson Investigators. He has earned international accreditation as a chief training officer and a fire officer for the Center for Public Service. Cap, Mike, it's wonderful to welcome you back to the show.
Always great to be here, Steve. I always appreciate the opportunity to let me spend some time with you and your listeners.
We really appreciate that as well, and always a very popular podcast when we look at the downloads and the listen tos, etc. So now that you've been retired for about 3-4 months,
okay. Yeah, roughly.
So how's retirement treating you, Cap?
Well, I got to tell you, the first week was tough. I'm not going to lie to you. The first week was a little difficult because, I live in a town where I worked, and when I walked out of the firehouse for the last time, I didn't want a lot of the traditional
hoopla
or pomp and circumstance, for lack of a better word. My lady and I put together a post-retirement celebration that we just had a couple of weeks ago with some friends from all over the country. And a lot of people asked why didn't you, the last, dispatch, the clap out, as they call it, the final salute or whatever it is. But the reality of it is, for us in the service, and I would think you would agree that being on a piece of fire apparatus is only one, although significant, portion of what we do in the fire service and what we do to better the fire service. So, my fire service brother Andy Starnes told me when I first talked to him about retiring, he said, "Just remember, you're retiring from the firehouse, not the fire service." And Andy is uh, a perfect example of that. The work he's doing with Insight Fire training and the thermal imaging and fire behavior training he's doing with that, as well as helping us with Kill the Flashover. So, yeah, I left the firehouse, but have still been very deep in the fire service still.
Now,
So first week was a little rough, but it's going better.
does that house take volunteers too, or is it all career?
My house was all career. We were surrounded by a lot of volunteer departments, so we were fortunate to have some pretty professional firefighters that we worked with, as well as in surrounding towns that we wound up initial alarm automatic aid on as
Sure.
well. So
Sure.
we were on a border of two other counties, so we wound up getting a lot of calls for help service into other agencies too. We had a very good. I'd like to think we had a very good working relationship with everybody around us. So
That's good. That's good to hear. And again, like you said, and you and I have talked about this both on camera and off, just talking with each other, is the fact that, as you said, and yet my wife can't buy into it yet, is that once you're a firefighter, you're always a firefighter.
oh, agreed. Just like you, I still have certain things I carry in my car. I still have certain things that go with me everywhere I go. Um, and I think people who aren't in the service don't understand or can't um, really fathom what it is that the profession does for us while we're in it, and why we work as hard as we do to remain in it and to make it better from whatever angle we're able to contribute. So I'm fortunate to be able to continue to teach and to help move the fire service along in a positive direction between the academies, the colleges, my private training that I do. I've had a pretty full calendar this year, even though retired, but retired from the firehouse. But so fortunate enough to still be able to provide some positive influence wherever I can.
Well, and I can tell you that the uh, many of when your name comes up, um, oftentimes I hear great reports of the kind of teacher you are, and how you teach, and you don't teach to bang the knowledge into their head. You guide them on the path of learning, and you don't just say, "Well, go back and read the next 15 pages, and I'll see you next Tuesday." The next Tuesday comes, and you don't even talk about, and that's something common in even when we were in college. When I was in high school and college, the same thing. They'd give an assignment, come in the next day, you worked on it all night. They didn't bring it up. They wanted us to pass it in. No, that's all right.
Yeah, there's a significant disconnect, especially in this type of service in emergency services, where with most adults who are more visual and audible learners than they are cognitive, and even as my son enters into adulthood in his first year of college, they become more show me what you need me to do, explain to me why we need to do it this way, and let me practice it a couple of times, and we'll get that down. And what the fire service training is lacking in that area, in some areas, as I say, in delivery in some areas of the world, is that continuity of excellence. There seems to be a general malaise when it comes to one validating the training, and secondly, confirming that the learning is actually taking place. Case in point, and I talk about this a lot. There's a lot of social media, for lack of a better word, snake oil salesmen who can preach a lot of different things and can become very influential. I didn't say positively or negatively, but can become very influential. So I was talking with Pete Matthews a couple of weeks ago, and he had said,
Yes,
"Where do you?"
he speaks highly of you when
Yeah,
he
Pete's a
and I
great
talk.
guy. Yeah, Pete's a
He's a
great
great
guy. He's
guy.
a good friend. But we were talking about training in general. And he said, "Where do you see the problem in the next 5 years when it comes to training?" And I think, well, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, if you went to any social media platform and typed in firefighting, you can find a lot of different things, some good, some bad. But the question becomes validation. How do we know that the information, one, is accurate, and two, it's applicable to where the end user can actually make it work? And it's not a question of whether we can do it mostly skill based or physically do it. The question is, in the department I was in, would the application be successful based on the resources, uh, population growth and concerns versus somewhere else in Jersey or across the country? So it's a great idea as long as the idea is applicable and accurate to where you can actually make the application. So,
Right.
and that's where things lots of the times things fall short. So a lot of great information on social media. The problem is making the application where it's actually beneficial and how to
Right.
validate that. So,
Yeah, that's the key, is validating the writer, we'll just call it that way, on social media. Because I remember
right.
when we first started the podcast in end of 2015, 2016, that was one of the things that I kept when I really dove into it after Andy and Joe kind of ganged up on me and forced me into the social media group of firefighters. And I can't thank them enough, because I got to meet so many of you at the three great Florida fire schools, um, and and yet I still have many friends like yourself who we've never met in person, but I would still consider many of you best friends. I mean, dear
Great.
friends,
I would
and
agree.
and you know, you've always been supportive of the podcast and always been able to accept an invitation when it's convenient for you, and you teach every time. But yet, those people who listen to your podcast, they are really tuned in. It's not just, well, I'm going to ride the bike and I'll just let it, ring. Um, it's really that I want to listen to it. I want to take notes on what you're saying. That way they can always contact you back through the email address to, could you help me understand? I was watched this, or I listened to you and I didn't quite get the gist. Could you help me out? And I'm sure you get those emails from time to time, or phone calls, and you're there because I've been an educator this as of my age currently, not what's going to be in February, but I've been teaching since 60 years. I started teaching when I was 13 years old. Wasn't my plan. I was hired. I was requested to become a teacher in the synagogue that I was working in. I was learning in. And other than the 2 years I spent living in Israel, I've been teaching ever since. And that's who I am. So I combine both the educator in me and the firefighter in me, and even my early paramedic days back in the mid to late 70s in North Carolina, which had a different paramedic paradigm than what we think of today, paramedics. And so I try to always use those experiences and my regular teaching experiences to educate, because the fire service in my heart and in my mind is something that we need to not just read the book and put pencil marks on it. You got to absorb this information, especially if you're going to do a practical after you study it for a couple of days, and then the class is going to do a couple of practical which deal with examples in the paperwork. If you don't do both, if you're not going to be a good firefighter, then how are you going to be able to do your job? If you only believe in doing the easiest things, yeah, I can do that, but I can't do the other stuff, or I don't want to do that stuff. You chose the wrong profession to be in.
I
Because
would say I would say in emergency services, not just fire
yeah,
service.
exactly. All three branches that we are. And
Right.
I've been trying to include all three branches in my postings. And the saddest thing for me is going through usually once, at least a couple of times a day, but sometimes depending how I feel, I skip a day. But to every member of our first responder club, all three branches, when I see a passing there, I will always make a comment for that person. And we've been losing police officers both during work and sadly again to their own hand this year. We lost 2 down here in Florida within 10 days.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And but we lose our firefighters who retire. And I said to my wife, I tried to explain it by saying, listen, this is part of me. This is not something I did for 8 years and then I got injured and I couldn't do it. It became a part of me and who I am.
Right.
And yes, will I stop and help if I deem it necessary? Yes, I will. And I'll do what I can do and know what I can't do. I said, because I'm not registered anymore, but I have the abilities to remember a lot of the stuff and basic, BLS stuff and things like that. And I said, that's why I do what I do, honey. It's because this is who I am. You don't complain when I teach. You don't complain when I teach the kids here. I said, and that's some little good change that comes in from that. I said, but my fire work is just as important to me, and that's why I read the magazine still. And like yours, your articles, I kind of read them like 2 and 3 times over different days because I want to absorb it again and see what I missed. Will I be using it? No, probably no matter left in my lifetime. I probably won't, but I still might be on the scene of an emergency. And I've been that on this street where I live, and right around the streets of this side of the community, I've stopped at least a dozen times in the last couple of years, right here, because I happen to drive up on it, or it just happens. I see it happen, things like that. So I think she's understanding, and she appreciates how important this is to me now. And I think that, like has happened to me, I think we all, those of us who are, whether we're married or we have a significant other, whatever the case is, we all have to be on the same page. You married me and you love me, and just because I'm a firefighter doesn't need to degrade those feelings. We can still have our emotional bond, but you have to understand that I may get called out in the middle of the night and you don't see me for 8 hours because there's a big call. And I'm hoping that that's another idea or concept I'd like to get going through the fire service, because we all face these difficult, 1 second. Yeah. Bruceville, Indiana. I don't think so. But I'd like to see more understand that when you do have some sort of a significant other in your life, you need to include them. Don't think that I won't tell them they won't ask questions. Baloney. We know that. But be fair to them and be honest to them. Not every call that we go on is horrible. A lot of them are a pain in the butt. But we took that oath to serve and protect our communities. And that means that what this community needs, or the citizen of this community needs to be addressed when they need help.
Well, it brings up an interesting point, and I think you epitomized it very well, and you're an example of that. I think I'd like to think that everybody in the world has a certain level of humanity to them. I'd like to believe that. Maybe I'm foolish to say that, but I really do believe that that's the case. I like to think there's good in everybody. I really do. And if anybody could help somebody, then I think anybody who had the ability to help somebody would, if they could. But the other thing that you bring up is a very good point. We who've been indoctrinated into any of the three disciplines that we talk about and that we support, we've accepted a duty to act. It's just that simple. And we've accepted that duty, career, volunteer, part paid, paid on call, for whatever, civic, whatever that reasoning is, you or anybody else who have accepted that duty of act can we find that as there are dual purposes to why we do what we do. We come with a lot of humanity. I like to think we do. And secondly, there is that acceptance of duty that no matter what the circumstance or situation that we are currently in at that moment, if there's something that any of us could do, we will do it. It reminds me of a funny story about, oh boy, probably the better part. I think my son was very young. We were having our vacation in central southern New Jersey. We had rented a house in the Wildwoods. My lady, her daughters, my son, and I, we were going. So we were out at the local supermarket getting food. We were going to pack up and be ready to go in 2 days, and there was an announcement over the radio. If there is anybody with medical training, please come to the courtesy desk. And my son, knowing who I am, he just gives me that look, and I'm still getting, I'm trying not to. And then there was another announcement the second time around, and I get the look from my son again, and I'm like, okay. So we take the cart, and I'm anticipating in a supermarket, what could happen, man? Somebody trips, they hurt their knee, or some kind of injury that beyond the pharmacist in the local place could have. Well, it turns out I have a gentleman in his mid-60s that's in respiratory arrest and full cardiac arrest, and I'm like, now I have my son with me, right? So we don't even think, right? Steve, you would agree. You don't even think. You drop what you're doing, and I'm there. One of the employees comes with a defibrillator. There happens to be a nursing student walking by who stops and jumps in to help. And in this process of we're doing CPR, we're shocking. There's a PD showing up because EMS is on the way, and I have this moment of clarity that goes, "Oh my God, where's my son?" I'm in the middle of compressions, going, "Where's my son?" And I turn and I see my son hiding behind an employee just looking to see what I'm doing. And I said to the employee, I said, "Do you work here?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "You see that boy behind you? Yeah, he's your responsibility till I'm done." And I didn't even think for a moment, I got my son with me. What am I going to, I just literally, the switch went on. And I'm sure you would understand that. We had accepted our position in life to help our fellow man, woman, whoever it is. And I didn't think twice. And luckily, the guy lived, and we brought him back. We wound up taking 2 shocks to bring him back. We got a non-shockable rhythm. EMS showed up, medics showed up shortly after that, packaged him, sent him on his way. He got discharged 4 days later. And I remember driving home from that, car full of groceries, right? And driving home, and the whole time, my son is just staring at me. And I didn't realize it. I was crying. I didn't even realize I was crying. He said, "Dad, why are you crying?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm crying." And I went like this, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm crying." And it was just the emotion, I think, of, obviously the duty act, we go right to it. The humanity part that we have to help anybody. And then my concern at that point was no matter what I was doing right here. I mean, again, you talk about being a parent, talk about being somebody who cares about other people, and talk about a delicate balance of where, the most important thing in my life, my son, I'm like, where's my kid? you know?
Yeah.
And he even understood that. I mean, look at he was, I don't know, probably 9 or 10 years old when this happened. Maybe he was 12 at the most. And when that call came over the
The PA system.
the PA system, I didn't even look first. He looked at me. I mean, because he knew, he knew I was a firefighter from the day he was born, and he knew that even at that young age, that what we do, we're indoctrinated into it, and that he respected it, he understands it, he supported it, and even when I deployed with USAR, he just supported it and understood it. Don't, and I'm not going to lie to you, he was grateful when when the stint ended. But you're right, the people in our lives don't understand it all the time, and I'm sure my son didn't understand it all the time. When I told him I was going to Surfside, he's like, "What are you going to Florida for?" I was like, "Well, I know you're too young to really watch the news, but if you knew, you'd know why." But he supported it either way, and yeah, that's key for it to be successful. But I don't think we ever lose that. I don't think I'd ever want to lose that.
Yeah.
Like you, I don't think I ever want to lose that. I think it provides that level of humanity, and it provides that purpose still. I think we all still need that, the purpose.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about retiring. Yeah, you retired. I'm not riding a rig anymore. And everybody asks, well, what do you miss the most? I miss getting on a rig. And what part of it, and this is going to sound silly, when that rig rolled down the apron didn't matter if I went left, didn't matter if I went right, didn't matter what I was going to. It didn't matter if I thought it was a nonsense call. It didn't matter if I saw the thermal plume 10 blocks away. The roll down that apron was the most fulfilling part of that entire career. Every
Right.
time I rolled down that apron was just amazing.
And even better when you drove sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I got promoted, I stopped driving, but you're right. Yeah. Just,
Yeah.
going down the apron was just an incredible feeling.
Taking on the whole concept of hydraulics and stuff like that is, that pay grade above just the regular firefighter you're going to drive, but you're going to be in charge of water, and that becomes your absolute focus, is making sure that your engine or pumper, whatever, whichever it is getting out the water that command is looking for. And so you go through, again, range of classes to learn all the steps. I remember I did mine at one of the North Carolina fire college with my buddy Rich. And I think you may have heard, I don't know if you know, but the electronic book that we've been selling since 2016 is now going to be published by Amazon in both paperback and hardcovers.
That's fantastic news.
Yeah, so we'll be, and it's just a story of my buddy Rich and I, how we met in that fire department in North Carolina, and the calls that we went on in those next 3.5 years. And I wanted to tell it just the way it was. It wasn't anything fancy, because we were just the first two Jewish guys in this Bible Belt congregation in South Greensboro, North Carolina area. And today, as of just a few days ago, in the end of October, he has been my friend for will be 50 years. Been my best friend, other than my wife, in 50 years.
That's phenomenal.
Oh, it is. And he has his own chopper instruction business now. So he travels around the country time to time to do certifications for pilots and in police and fire rescue as well. So it's a fun book, but it's also serious, because we have real serious calls in there too that we were on together.
But see now, this really brings back to the point of the duty to act. And as you think about the things you went through to become a driver, and the hours of time and learning and routine and step-by-step instruction and picking up hose and hitting hydrants and calculations and flow rates and elevation and all those things, you just don't stop.
And that's before we had calculators.
Right. So it was all up here where we had to
paper, right?
And we had to do math. So it's not something when you're part of a profession like this that has so many moving parts to it. Um, you can't just say, "Well, I'm done." You can't just say, "Or I'll never do that again." And like you feel there's always that duty to act where you can help whenever you can. Think about what the fire service has become, even from the 38 years ago when I first entered the first firehouse as a probationary member of a fire department to where we are today. The fire service is an all-encompassing emergency service provider in support of EMS and in support of law enforcement. And sometimes we do aid in skills. For example, I mean, the department I was in, plus being on USAR, we performed a significant level of technical rescue. Well, I mean, there had to be some EMS involved in that at some point, whether we were cutting somebody out of a car at a motor vehicle accident, or we were entering a confined space, or we were coming and shoring a trench and packaging a patient. And we have to understand the science and the amount of work that goes into that. For example, as you as a paramedic, now I was never a paramedic. I had enough problem getting through EMT school, but just think about the science that you had to go through to understand how much medication and where and at what pace and at what rate, and based on symptoms, and how you go through your checklist or your scientific method of how you clear things out versus how you would consider different hypotheses when it comes to that. That doesn't just get lost because you don't get in an ambulance anymore. And calculations and flow rates don't get lost, or considerations of suppression don't get forgotten just because you don't sit on a fire apparatus anymore. And sometimes the simplest ways to help people are the things that come simply to guys and gals like you and I, versus the layperson who stares at these things and wondering what to do. So why wouldn't we still do it? I think there's something to be said for that. And
Absolutely.
that has to remain if we're going to move
Nope.
forward from the fire or the EMS department, whatever it is that we finally say that's it. We're not responding to emergencies anymore. Emergent circumstances can happen at any time.
Right.
Why wouldn't we still be able to do that? Or why shouldn't we? We should.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember talking about kids. I was working outside in Lakeland, Florida, at a synagogue there for the high holidays. And this was the last of the high holidays, Yom Kippur. And we finished the service and we were heading back to, she was attending UCF in Florida. And so we were heading back down to her apartment. And then I was going to leave the next day. But I'm on I-4 and all of a sudden I see a big splash up and dirt in the air and stuff like that. So we pull up and I see a car upside down in the swale in between the northbound, the westbound and the eastbound. It was pouring rain. It had been pouring since the morning when we first got to the synagogue at 8:30. Now it's about 1:30. And somebody comes running over. I passed and I'm just wearing my suit coat. I mean, I wore a suit and wearing that. And she goes, help me. My mother is stuck in the car upside down. And I said, okay. And then right behind my car, an old Lincoln comes up with 6 Hispanic kids. And they said, do you need help? And I said, I'm going to. So yes, stick with me. Let's go see what we got. And I gave Adina my phone and I said, call 911. There's the sign. Tell them where we are. And I said, we might need a trauma alert. But I said, I'm not sure depending on the weather. So we went over there and luckily I had my...
On it, 1 sec.
My rescue knife, because I always, it's the Gibbs rule number 9, always have a knife.
It's like always carrying a Leatherman.
Yeah. So I was able to slice but she was upside down and the water was coming up here already. I asked the daughter, so the boys went to the other side of the car. They were going to help bring her out, push towards us to get her out. And we got her out, and I asked the daughter, I said, does your mother have any medical conditions? She goes, yeah, she has a heart condition. She has breathing problems, and she has high blood pressure. I said, did she take any of her medicine today? She goes, I don't know. I said, okay, then I'm going to have to really her as best I can until the ambulance gets here. So a Florida state trooper stopped by, and by this time now we'd gotten her into my car. I had a rescue blanket, so I put that on her, trying to take, when she was cold, because this was like October, and sometimes they're about 3.5 hours northwest of us. But the trooper came over, and I said, see if we can get a trauma alert. I said, I'm not sure because of the weather, but can you radio it in and see? And so he said, sure, I'll take care of that. And we got her in, got her packaged. Ambulance showed up. They couldn't do the trauma alert, so we got her in, and I always leave my regular business card. And luckily, 3 days later, I got a little note that said, my mom's fine only because of you and those other boys who helped us out. That's the thank you. She didn't have to thank me in my car. She didn't have to follow me down. She didn't have to trace me. She just want to say thank you. And that's so fulfilling.
So I don't know if you know this, but myself and my crew 6 years ago wound up getting a Valor Award.
I'm not surprised.
We saved a guy. Yeah, I work with some amazing firefighters. I really did, and we were very fortunate. And everybody says, how were the firefighters that worked for you? I said, I didn't have any firefighters that worked for me. I had a lot of firefighters that I worked with, and I have a screenshot, and I'll put it up to my. You probably can't see it, but it's actually an email on Facebook from the guy we saved and his 6-year-old son. And his 6-year-old son said, "Thank you to the firefighters who saved my daddy's life."
That's it. That's it.
The Valor Awards
mean nothing
over there.
The
paper, the thing from the senators is over there. That is on my phone forever. And you're right. Nothing else matters. Right? And these are the things. And this is why people need to understand that when we're indoctrinated into things like this, look at the abilities. And this is why, and I know I always go back to training, and I know I become redundant with that, but think about.
No, you're not being redundant. You're teaching. You're a teacher, and that's what you're doing. You're teaching us.
And this is the significance of this. And to be honest with you, you saved that woman's life and didn't react. It didn't even take a second out. You reacted. You performed. You didn't react. You performed because you trained to that point. And that's where the concern is, in my eyes, in the training in the emergency services today. We didn't even. It's interesting because on that rescue scene where we saved that guy, we didn't even have to talk. When you work with a crew that was that good, and these guys were just phenomenal. We knew exactly what the next person's move was each time. And we didn't even have to have a whole debate or discussion about how we were going to do it. It just happened. It clicked. It just flowed. He lived, most importantly. And I think that gets lost on training today for a lot of reasons. I don't think that the significance of the science behind what we do is still in the forefront as it should. And from a medical standpoint, as a paramedic, you can speak of that better than I could. But from a fire officer standpoint, there are so many moving parts in how you consider suppression versus equipment and resources and manpower and hydraulics and elevation and fire behavior and air track management and all these things versus what we see on social media and we go, hey, that looks pretty cool. Let's try that. And there's a miss to that. I mean, and the problem with that is that in a split second, you get a short picture of one instance that people say, okay, well, this happened and here's the proof. No, you don't see what happened before it or after it. We had an extrication on the New Jersey Turnpike probably about 2 or 3 years before I retired. It was a significant commercial truck that rear-ended a fully loaded dump truck at about 70 miles an hour. We wound up landing the chopper on the highway. This guy was in pretty bad shape when we got him out, significantly bad shape. He made it. But I remember coming back to the firehouse after that call. I'm just getting to the exit going back to the firehouse, and one of the firefighters off duty sent me a link to the extrication we were performing that was on Instagram. I didn't even make it back to the firehouse, and we were already on social media. I was looking at myself, and here it is, like, oh, it was something about, commercial extrication should be done, and I'm like, stop. You don't even know the whole story. You got a 10-second snippet of something as you drove by it and videoed it. It's a moment in time. There is so much science that goes on before that, and so much of it after it. And this is where I talk about validation of the information you're getting. I mean, did you know the circumstances why we were doing what we were doing versus the circumstances that you might read in that textbook? And that's where the science gets missed. You make the application as a pump operator, as a medic, as a firefighter, as a fire officer, but a lot of people in the service today don't realize it's not just the science, it's the application over the years that you've had, it's the application over the years that I've had. And listen, I'll speak for myself. I've tripped from time to time. First fire I had as a junior officer burned a building down. It was a disaster. But then I learned, oh well, I'm not making that mistake again. And yeah, I think and that's part of the what I like to call the participation award trophy to fire service. When somebody says to me, well, the fire went out, nobody got hurt. I agree, but the end result would have been exactly the same if you would have never left the building. So we can't just settle for that. We can't say, oh yeah, what was it? Fire went out. Doesn't matter. Nobody got hurt. Burn the city block down. Fire went out. Nobody got hurt. You can't say that. There's much more to this than that, and that's why people that are truly have that humanity and that duty to act will have that until we're long gone, and that's just how it is.
I remember somebody on social media way back, probably in 2016, 2017, and they were saying about a particular fire that had been on. There used to be a app called Periscope, and you could put.
I remember that.
Yeah, remember that? And this guy, had all these comments about how they were doing it wrong and everything like that. Well, it turned out somebody told somebody, and somebody else found somebody who knew this guy. He lives in his parents' home in the basement, doesn't work, and he just is excited by firefighters and firefighting. But who is he to stop publishing this kind of stuff on social media, and think that, oh, all the other firefighters who are on social media are going to read my posting? That doesn't happen, and it's lessened, I think, in parts. But now with the super growth of social media, so just the first couple of channels that we had, which everybody was on, which was Twitter and Instagram, but started out on Facebook before they even brought Instagram around. And that's the difference, is that if you talk with knowledge, people will listen. They'll hear. There'll be that one link, and they'll say, "Oh, I want to hear this. I want to know it." But if that thing is missing, then you removed your validity to, for anybody to think this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. And that wasn't how the house was. We had it this way. Fire started on the seaside.
That's it, to being back on ring.
Yeah, so
right.
It is what it is. But I agree that have stressed on the show that education is the best tool a firefighter has.
I would agree. And it's a never-ending task when you're in the emergency services. And when you've taken the oath and have been indoctrinated, it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
I mean, even today, I still go to school, I still go to classes, still learning. And now, I mean, I'm directing a focus, and we're looking at not so much EV firefighting, but we're looking at EVs in motor vehicle accidents and extrication, even when they're not on fire.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the issues that we're having with those, as far as weight classes, battery management systems, and how we're dealing with those with the 12-volt system versus the high voltage systems. Now, even removing the vehicles, ones you can't tow that you have to lift, because they're continuing to generate energy when the wheels are spinning. I mean, there's so many points, and we're spending so much time. And this is what I mean about the science. We're spending so much time about how do we put out EV fires? How do we put out EV fires? I don't care where you turn, you can see information about how to put out an EV fire, or where to get information on a suppressing agent that works on EVs, or what's the best way to deal with the off-gassing after an EV fire. Hey, how about we talk about how many EV accidents we have and how we're dealing with those, and stabilizing a 9,500-pound GMC Hummer that's on the road versus that GMC pickup that was only 5,000 or 6,000 pounds 5 years ago. Now you've doubled the weight of these things. The impacts are greater. You haven't increased your capabilities of stabilization or even cribbing or shoring a vehicle like this, but we're all worried about them burning when we're having 3 to 4 times more accidents than we are having fires with them.
Right.
So there's always that science that has to move forward, and it has to be all encompassing. And I think that's just one example of what we miss. And it's something that it takes time and it takes commitment. There's no other way around it.
Right.
So
Right. And that's the first thing we should educate the new recruits with. This is what it's all about. It's not about the sirens. It's not about the bells. It's not about rushing through red lights. And it's more about learning and retaining what you learn and being able to put it into practice.
Well, one of the issues we're having up here, and I don't know if you're having it in your area of the country, but there is a grassroots campaign here is to cut the amount of training hours for the entry level program significantly. And the problem that I have with it is as much as this is a blue collar, hands-on culture that we've decided to be a part of, there is a lot of science and theory that goes into what we do. I can't just teach a firefighter to take a hose off a fire apparatus and pull it until you can't pull it no more, and then open it up and flow water. There's so many scientific nuances that go into that, and it takes time to understand that. And the application of the theory of the science to the practical end of it takes time. And it takes time because how you learn and how I learn, how my son learns, how your kids learn, they're all different. And how today's youth learn versus our generation when I came into fire service not long ago. We didn't have the social media, the internet. We didn't have these things that we had for learning different skills or looking at other things are done. Or like even today, I use the Jones and Bartlett curriculum up here in New Jersey. You can go on the website as a student and actually watch the video of the actual skills. You can actually listen to the audio of the actual chapters. If you're not much into reading, there are so many more different ways to learn than were available to us. But even though there are more ways to provide education, there's a grassroots campaign up here to cut the amount of time related to it. And I just think that does a disservice in general. But
not only to the firefighter, but to the community.
Absolutely. I agree.
That's, I mean, we don't play with each other as firefighters just to check our abilities. But the fact is, our abilities have to be able to meet the need of the people in that community, and that's it. We don't have we don't do it for anybody else. That oath that we take is for the community we're serving, and we have to keep our attention that they come first.
And there's times where we're prepared to do it all the time, but there's times where we don't have to do it all the time. And those are the ones where we should take moments like that of learning about certain things. Like guys on my department, like any department, hate pre-planning. Yeah. It's not a romantic part of the job. I get it. However, when I played organized sports, which I'm sure everybody listening has probably played some type of organized sports, but my coach never went up to me at football practice and said, "Hey, you know what? We're just going to show up Friday night, see how it goes." We never had that. So our officers never go, "Hey, you know what? If we have a fire today, we're just going to show up and see how it goes." We wouldn't do that. We would think that's completely ridiculous to do that. But yet, every moment that we have gives us an opportunity to learn something new. And what we do with it and how we remember that and take note of that is really kind of key. So when we see it again, we load our hard drive with information that way. And a disservice is done when we don't see those things and pass them along. But I don't think the emphasis, like I said, in training and taking those bullet points and passing that stuff along really is as in the forefront as it should be anymore. And that's sad. I hope
Right.
it goes back to that way.
Right. Good. All right. So we're going to take a break here, folks, and we'll be right back with our guest, recently retired Captain Mike Daley. We're going to talk about Kill the Flashover, and Mike, you're still the president, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I am.
Okay, of that, and we're going to talk about your education program that you run and teach at. So we want to make sure that the listeners and viewers will have that information at hand as well. So, folks, we're going to take a quick break here. You will really not know the difference from the time we do this break and then we come back again. But we'll be here, and we'll be right back right after these words. As always, please stay tuned. Hello, and welcome back to this premiere episode for Season 10 of 5 Alarm Task Force. And we are so happy that gracing us today is a good friend, a brilliant firefighter and instructor in the fire service. And if you listen to the first part of the episode, you know how Mike and I talked about education, and actually it was like shown through the entire first part of the podcast because it is so important. And we hope that you who are listening or watching this will take some of Mike's recommendations to heart and realize that we can always better ourselves if we want to be better at what we do. And that's the key of it. So we're going to first talk about in this section about the Kill the Flashover program, which was initially started by former Chief Joe Starnes and his son Andy, who Mike mentioned early, also a dear friend. He is one of the members of the board of our nonprofit 5 Alarm Task Force Corp. And Andy is probably, you put Andy, you put Mike, you put Joe DeVito, John Dixon, John Haywick, and several others that I've gotten to know so well over these last nearly 10 years, that education is fundamental. You can't run the tick without education. You can't do cribbing and stabilization if you don't study and practice it. So together, a group of these firefighters created the Kill the Flashover program. And Mike, I'm going to leave that to you now.
Well, I got to tell you, we have been blessed to be able to carry the tradition that Chief Joe Starnes and Chief Sean Oak, Chief Warren Whitley, Chief Jason Coy had started out the better part of, 12, 13 years ago. We had gotten involved with it and have been able to keep it moving. It's now a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. We provide college level training online in fire behavior. And one of the things that we all agree from a training standpoint and why we put this together, why we feel this is important to continue the tradition that Chief Starnes and Chief Oak and Chief Whitley had put together, is the significance of the ability of everybody to come home safely. That's key. And here's one of the things that we preach, and I preach a lot when I do training. And I don't care, like you had said, I don't care if you're doing hose line attack, if you're doing suppression, you're doing extrication, you're running vitals, you're learning how to do a sample history on a patient as an EMT. Competence breeds confidence. It's that simple. You have to be very competent to be able to do what you need to do at a moment's notice confidently and efficiently. And that's where one of the driving forces, not only behind Kill the Flashover, but a lot of the training that we do, that Andy does worldwide with thermal imaging, or Joe DeVito does worldwide, or John Dixon's normalization of deviance, and Kill the Flashover's fire behavior. Why do we preach the science as much as we do? Because we want to make sure that everybody who comes through our programs, not just Kill the Flashover, and I'm sure Brother Andy and Brother John would agree, everybody that comes through our program has the skills, has the tools, has the material they need to do this job correctly. Once they leave, it's on them. It's a scary thing to say, but we provide a lot of information. We provide a lot of scientific data. And what the end result is that we have no control over, as none of us do, is what that student does with it when they leave. That's the part that we have no influence over. It's out of our circle of influence, as they say. But the competency level is what makes us much more confident and efficient on emergency scenes. So we are in the middle of second semester of Kill the Flashover, Fire Behavior College. We are just getting to the burn house presentations of all our students. We have students from 3 different countries represented this semester. 6 or 7 different states in the United States, as well as 3 different countries. We have a wide variety of educational levels, from chief officers to 2-year firefighters, and a very good mix in the middle, and who bring a lot of different diverse experiences as well. And one of the great things about what we do is, again, we talked about this before, we preach the science. The science is the constant. And when we teach fire behavior, there's so many things about fire behavior that people don't get. And it's silly, because, and I teach this at the college level as well, and I talk to my students. I'm in the middle of a fire behavior semester at one of the local colleges I teach, and last night was compartment fire behavior. And I had asked, okay, what makes fire? And everybody can regurgitate those same 4 lines. Oh, we need fuel, air, heat, and a chemical chain reaction. Great. What influences fire? And then they just stare at you. I said, well, the reality of it is we know how to make fire, but the problem is we don't understand the influence on fire, whether it's in the compartment, out of the compartment, whether the compartment's made of wood, steel, concrete, whether there's a viable air track, whether there's no air track, whether there's a lot of volume of air in a larger building versus a smaller building, what the heat release rate is on the fuels. All of these things, the release of CO and CO2, all of these points have a significant influence. And that's why the science, when we get into the competency level, is so critical about what we do. And not just in fire behavior, but calculating weights on cars, and when they are not on their tires, and we do stabilization, how do you know where forces are going to move? Or we're putting loads on ropes when we're doing high angle or confined space entry, and how do we measure critical angles and what the forces are on anchors? There's a lot of science to this job, and that comes through competency. And I don't care what it is that we're doing. You have to be competent at what we do. And it takes the time it takes to do that isn't just spent in the classroom. The time is in the application as well. And that's one of the things when we talk about the validation of training and the validation of information or instructors. Instructors get 2 things when they walk into a room, sometimes before they even deserve it. One, they get information power. A student immediately believes that instructor has information that he or she wants. And the other power that instructor gets is expert power. The student makes an assumption that the instructor has performed what he or she is about to speak about to a point where they have a mastery of it. And how many times do we sit as students of the fire service and sit through a class of however long it is, and we go, well, that certainly wasn't worth what I thought it was going to be. And this is the problem we have with the availability of training, but the lack of validation of accuracy. I don't know what the solution is. I wish I did. I wish I had an idea for the solution. But I would tell everybody when it comes to training, and one of the things that I'm proud of with Kill the Flashover is we don't just read about it and teach it. We've been to North Carolina for weeks on end. Chief Perry Davis and Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department are huge supporters of us. They've always opened the doors for us, logistically and support-wise. They've been phenomenal, continue to be phenomenal. We love working with those folks down there. We bring the data back. We do the recordings. We put it out there. And we're just grateful that we have an audience to give it to. And we're hoping that we can continue. The audience has been growing every semester so far, which is a good thing. And we were just in New Jersey last year around this time doing some test burns. We're going to be back. We actually were talking with Brother Dixon again. Looks like next November we're going to be back up in Sussex County doing a couple more hypothesis burns. So once that information is put out, we're going to be announcing that probably after the beginning of the year so we can get people on board with it. So there's a lot of great things coming. And again, I don't, as the president, I don't lead the organization. I stand next to shoulder with a bunch of really, really smart people that bring this to light and make this happen. So I've certainly been blessed to be a part of it and glad to be able to continue the tradition that Chief Starnes and Chief Oak and Chief Whitley have put forward.
You know, if you speak to Chief Oak, please give him my best regards. The last trip we were able to make up in 2019 up the coast to see our girls before they moved down here. We stopped in North Carolina, and because that's one of our bases when we were driving up and down I-95, because we have friends still there that we met when we were living there back in the mid 70s. But we went to the bakery, and he was as welcoming and warmly took us in and showed us around the bakery, and then gave us a box of his specialties that just looking at it, I put on 5 pounds. I didn't even touch it, but I looked at it and I gained 5 pounds, and it was delicious. And I hope he still has the bakery, even if he's retired from it. But it's a great place. And I forget, was it Oak? Is that Oak Grove? Is that where that is in North Carolina?
I
don't remember the name of the
certain. I know now he has 2.
Oh, he has 2.
Yeah, built a new one. And I will tell you, it's funny because Chief Oak, I didn't even know he had that skill. I remember going to my first Kill the Flashover, and these boxes of treats and goodies would show up, and I'm like, man, where are they getting this stuff? And finally, at the last day we were there, it came out that he was the guy behind it. He had a bakery, and I'm like, you did this? I'm like, this stuff is phenomenal. Oh my God, why are you fighting fires? I'd be doing this for a while. Yeah, the same thing though. Yeah,
he's
phenomenal.
just a great guy. I wanted him on the show right after that, but I just couldn't find a time for that. But folks, we're going to give you at the end of the podcast, we're going to give you how to contact Mike for Kill the Flashover, and also about his teaching program that we're going to talk about now. And it has write down these initials very carefully, not like I do, and I get them wrong every time. But he'll give you the initials of the organization, and let's learn a little bit more about it, Mike, please.
So about 15 years ago, I went out on a venture to deliver some training my way, with competency and efficiency built into every program. I started Fire Service Performance Concepts, actually by accident, to be honest with you. My ex-wife who was my wife at the time, was listening to me talk to somebody about how they needed a lesson plan, or they were they were going to do a class in their firehouse, and they asked if I had a lesson plan, or if they can provide some insight, or I could help them with something. And again, we have humanity, we have a duty to act or serve. So here I am helping somebody, and my ex, or was my wife at the time, said, "Hey, you know what? You could probably make money doing this. Did you ever think about that?" No, I never did. And an idea was born. Today, I'm proud to say 15 years into it, we have thousands and thousands of students that have come through our programs, whether it's technical rescue, whether it's fire behavior, whether it's NFA programs like incident safety officer, command classes. We ran a 24-hour strategy and tactics online program over the summer that was attended by a bunch of people from multiple states. We do hybrid classes for online training. We are just finishing up a couple of classes that we're doing for the Division of Fire Safety here in New Jersey. This month coming, we have a couple of thermal imaging classes coming, and a fire behavior class, as well as a strategy and tactics class in central New Jersey that's coming up as well. So we offer a lot of training that we bring to the firehouse that we feel is beneficial, because as we're always staying in touch and on top of as things are changing in the fire service, and our programs are mirroring that. So just for an example, I'm sure Brother Andy and Joe DeVito are doing the same things. The new changes to NFPA 1010 require a significant amount of thermal imaging training to firefighters now. And there are over almost 24 applications of thermal imaging that have to be covered with firefighters today. And myself, with my company, have now updated our training programs to cover all of those, and not only for new recruits, but now for all firefighters. So one of the driving forces behind that class was there are significant changes that are coming that are already out, that firefighters need to be able to use the technology that's existing on their apparatus now and make the applications that they need to be able to do. But they won't be able to do that without the competencies. So we're providing that training, as well as we're focusing a lot on extrication training this year. We've done about half a dozen extrication classes that are now including significant changes with dealing with electronic vehicles on the scene from a weight, stabilization, movement standpoint. We've developed some new techniques that are now above and beyond what NFPA 2500, the rescue standard, is. We've developed new ways for third row patient removal, as well as roof removal and access. So there's a lot of changes that are happening. And we're putting it out there because we and the guys that teach with me understand that this is not a one and done kind of profession. We don't learn about something once and then, yeah, we know about that, we learned about it, let's move on. So we don't even just run baseline classes, we run a lot of refresher classes that are geared towards the veteran firefighter to build on the skills that they already have and introduce them to the newer curriculum and the newer things that they should be doing as well. So we're trying to make that attraction to get back in the classroom a little bit more palatable, with just sticking to the facts that need to be covered to bring somebody up to today's level of standard. So we're doing some great things, I think. If you take a look at our website, it's www.fspceducators.com. All of our classes are listed on the website, as well as our training schedule. And you can reach out for us, get some info on our classes and where we can run them and how we can help you. And we'll be able to even design a program that's specific to the needs of your department as well, which we've already done in the past. So it's been very fulfilling, and we've been providing literally lots of training. And as a matter of fact, you talked about having Chris Kessinger from Citizens First. A couple of the instructors and myself were teaching a 40th anniversary of Firehouse Expo, and Chris was one of our logistics guy at the Ohio Fire Academy with his company and his amps, his tools. And I want to talk about a blessing to be able to work with a guy like Chris. I mean, his knowledge of extrication and his skill level was absolutely phenomenal. And uh, when you pair up with another instructor who shares the passion that you do to deliver that competency in that manner, it's really a great connection. We spent 3 days with him. We learned a lot from him. I'd like to think that he learned a few things from us. A definite consummate leader in the fire service, especially in the world of vehicle rescue and extrication. And guys like that and companies like that are, when we talk about validation of training, there's a guy and there's a company and there's a organization that needs no further validation from me. I've seen what he can do. I've seen his skills, and there is somebody who wants to make the fire service better. So I think when you get to have him on your program, Steve, you're going to see what a great guy he is, what a great organization he runs, and a wealth of knowledge. And
Yeah, he's been
capability.
on once before.
Oh, really? Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah. So, but I think what really stands out for me is his motto, which is citizens first. Not wealthy citizens, not poor citizens, just the citizens of the community he protects. They come first. That's who we serve. And no matter what kind of an ego we have, the citizens still come first. And I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would agree. And a lot of people talk about that all the time. It's about them. It's about them. Agreed. If it's about them, then let's make it about the citizens first. Let's make it about the community and the members that we protect. And how's the best way to do that? Like you alluded to before, know your job, understand the theory behind what we do, have the competency to be confident.
That's it. Exactly. That's the basis of who we are. And if you're in this field for, I'll put in quotes, glory, you chose the wrong field. Okay. This is what we do is a passion of our heart in our brains. We work them both together to take care of the people that we've sworn an oath to protect. Can they be a pain in the butt? Yeah, absolutely. We all have those frequent flyers. We have this, we have that. And yeah, they take us away from a ball game that we were watching for 20 minutes. And yes, we'll help Mrs. Smith get back into her chair. And you missed a couple of minutes. But you know what? What if you had taken more time to get there? And by the time you got there, maybe she was in respiratory failure or respiratory arrest. What's more important, the damn football game or your citizen who's calling for help?
Or take the time to figure out why Mrs. Smith fell. I can tell you from my own experience, we've gone to places and we've gone from lift assist. Fire department's not uncommon for us to go on lift assist. We've gone out, and one of the questions that I've always asked is, why'd you fall? Or how'd you fall? Do you remember falling?
Yeah.
And 99% of the time we get, I wasn't paying attention, or I slipped. I went to get up, my arm let go, or, my foot got caught on a rug. But for that 1% of the time where they go, no, I don't remember, that's no longer a lift assist. That's a
medical issue.
That's a medical issue we need to look at. And, again, when we talk about competency and taking that moment, service, having that duty to act, it's not just, let's pick her back up so we can get back to the ball game or get back to the dinner we made at the fire station. That's not what it's about. Do the job, have the competency to do it right.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. And that's why most of us take that oath, because we live by it.
And we continue to, even though we don't ride the apparatus anymore.
Right.
And that's true. And how we started this conversation today was understanding that this is a passion that doesn't leave us just because we left the organization that we used to ride the apparatus on.
Very true. Very true. Mike, I can't thank you enough. we're going to, when I put this up in the show notes, we're going to put, I want to write it down correctly. So I'll have that in a moment. And we'll put that in the show notes for you. So you can contact Mike for either Kill the Flashover or FSPCE. Either way, I can tell you that you're going to learn. If you're going this on your own and say, I want to be better, I want to do more, or at least learn more about what I'm doing to feel it. Both the KTF and FSPCE are going to help you with that. Some of it's even catered. It can be, as Mike just said, they can, if you have a problem in a specific topic you'd like to work with them, let them know. And they'll be happy to start talking with you about it, fleshing it out, and see what they can do to help you. But never, ever think that, number one, you've learned it all. You got 25 years in? Wonderful. That's an amazing record today. But it's still the 25. And some of that stuff that you learned in years 1 and 2 might not be so quick to jump in the mind again at this point. And the fact is that remember why you became a firefighter, the real reason why. And, most of us, we grow up with it. We've known in the long tradition of the American Fire Service, there's always been a familial connection for all these years that many, fathers, grandfathers, great grandfathers were firefighters. It comes down the family tree, and that's wonderful. But you want to be the best at what you're doing. Doesn't mean you'll learn it all, because we never can learn it all. Sometimes it has to jump in our face to know what we need to look up. And there's no shame in saying, I don't really understand that. That's okay. Matter of fact, that shows you're a smarter student than one who says, yeah, I'll ace this. Don't worry about it. No problem. And turns out they don't do as well. But because you cared about learning that topic, you're going to stand out better. And that's the key. Firefighting is not just riding the apparatus. It's not just wrangling a hose. It is doing what needs to be done within our abilities to protect and serve and save in our communities. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. Well said, Steve.
Thank you. Well, again, our sincere thanks to Captain Mike Daley. Yes, recently retired. But as we both have said, because we're not riding the apparatus anymore, doesn't mean we're not firefighters anymore. It's who we are and what we care about. My family says I've stopped probably somewhere between 200 and 300 times at scenes where I've been first on the scene, or it happened right in front of me, or I stop at a scene with other people who just stopped. They weren't trained at all. But it's that magnet of who I am in my heart and in my brain. And a good firefighter, male or female, makes no difference. It's what's in your heart and what's in your brain makes the good firefighter. That's the key.
Agreed.
Thank you, Mike, so much. I'm glad to see things are still moving along. Good luck with your son, freshman in college. Yeah, it was tough for our girls. They were both of them went to UCF. Both did really well. Both of them got masters in the subjects they want. And the key is that family is family, and family always comes first. But we have two families. We know that. We have our real family that we live with, and we have the family at the firehouse or in the volunteer department. They're still a family. And that's the way we work, because we are a family. Yes, do we have spats once in a while? Every family does. But the basis is that we care about ourselves, our families, and the people we protect. And that's what being really a firefighter is all about, caring. So again, our sincere thanks, Mike. Thank you so much. Always great to have you with us again. So much learning available in just about an hour and a half, thanks to your great teaching skills.
Well, always appreciate the opportunity and congratulations on 10 years. I'm
Thank
glad
you.
to have been a part of your 10-year anniversary and hopefully many more to come.
Well, we'll hope. We'll see. We'll see what the good Lord is thinking. All right. So, folks, that'll be the end of the video. If you're listening to the audio version, you'll have a little bit more coming up at the end of this break. So, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back shortly with another episode. Always keep safe, stay well, and let's take care of each other. Bye-bye now.